After being bound to the conquering system, it started giving me advice, telling me to act like a simp for both the female lead and the female supporting role. However, not only did I refuse, I even turned around and bound both of them to a fake system. The next second, the female lead and the female supporting role received a message at the same time. The fake system said, "Dear host, you have successfully bound to the conquer the male lead system. When the male lead's affection level reaches 100, the mission is successful. When the male lead's affection level drops to -100, the mission fails. Failure will result in immediate erasure. Friendly reminder, if the male lead's affection drops below 0, a random punishment will be triggered. Suggestion, start simping early." Chapter 1. When I was bound to the so-called conquest system, I had just quarreled with my so-called biological parents, run away from home, and ended up wandering the streets. As I was thinking about where to spend the night, a cold mechanical voice echoed in my ears. "Congratulations, host. You have successfully bound the conquest system." A transparent screen suddenly appeared before my eyes. 2 women's personal profiles scrolled across it. That was when I realized I was living inside a tragic romance novel, and I was the male lead of this world, the real young master of the Wang family, who had been lost for more than 20 years. Because the plot had deviated from its original course, the system manifested and ordered me to conquer the female lead and the female supporting role of the novel. The heroine was Willow Lu, the eldest princess of the Lu clan, and the supporting role Sophia was her niece, also the childhood sweetheart of my fake younger brother, Makoto. Both of them were quite fond of him. On the very day I returned home, the two even came over to stand up for him, worried that this country bumpkin, me, might cause him trouble. Chapter 2. Lying on the large hotel bed, I carefully questioned the system about every rule it had, including what the punishment would be if I failed to complete the mission. The system was silent for a moment before replying in its cold, mechanical tone. "Erasure. If I completed the task, I could take the cheat items from the system's store, but I had to finish before the story ended. In the original plot, it took 5 long years of love, hatred, and entanglement between me and those people before reaching the happy ending. So, if I didn't complete the conquest mission within 5 years, I'd be doomed." After thinking for a moment, I asked, "So no matter what method I use, as long as the conquest succeeds, it counts, right?" The system hummed in affirmation. I opened the system store and searched for useful tools. Then I said, "System, lend me some money. I'm buying an item." Everything in the system store was priced in this world's currency, but I didn't have that much money. The next second, a long string of zeros appeared in my account. I bought an item called Fake System. It didn't have much power, just remote monitoring and remote messaging features. I linked the fake system to both of them. And in the input box, I typed the message I wanted it to broadcast. "Dear host, you have successfully bound the conquest male lead system. When the male lead's affection reaches 100, the mission is complete. If his affection drops to -100, the mission fails. Upon failure, you will be immediately erased. Kind reminder, if the male lead's affection drops below 0, random punishments will begin." Chapter 3. Through the remote monitor, I saw the female lead, Willow, freeze in place. She seemed to have just gotten home, preparing to shower and change her clothes. Her knitted cardigan slipped off her shoulder, revealing the graceful curves that she usually kept modestly hidden. I opened a can of beer and leaned back on the sofa, eyes fixed intently on the screen. Willow appeared to be wondering whether the voice she had just heard was a hallucination or something real. I typed another message. "Please proceed to conquer the male lead, George. When his affection reaches 100, the mission will be considered a success. Current affection level, 0. At first, I considered how much affection I should assign from my side toward her, but in the end, I decided to use the same standard as their affection toward me. Other than our first encounter on the day I returned home, Willow and I had never interacted again, so her 0 affection level didn't surprise me at all. As for Sophia, her affection level toward me was -50. I suspected she might have a bit of misandry in her. Any man she didn't personally approve of instantly became her enemy. Switching to the other screen, I saw Sophia. Her hair was dripping wet. She had just come out of the shower, a towel loosely wrapped around her body. While drying her hair, she muttered in confusion, "What the hell is that?" After hearing the system repeat the conquest instructions, she mumbled my name under her breath. Then she snorted coldly, "Conquer someone? Are you insane? Find someone else. I'm not doing it." I scrolled through the system store and selected a punishment tool, electric shock mode. Then I typed, "System detected host's refusal to cooperate. Male lead George's affection is too low. Initiating random punishment mode." Before Sophia could react, I pressed the activation button. On the monitor, she collapsed, convulsing violently as a blood-chilling scream tore through the speakers. When the first wave ended, she still refused to yield, spitting defiance through clenched teeth. "I won't accept this. I don't care. I refuse. I pressed the button again. Her shrieks pierced the air once more, but she still wouldn't give in. Sophia's temper was truly fierce. I had to shock her dozens of times before she finally broke, trembling and sobbing. Stop. Please, stop. I'll do it. I accept. I gently tapped the button one last time. This time, what came out of her mouth was a breathy moan, rubbing my ear. I saved a copy of that sound clip. The system, silent for a few seconds, finally asked, "What are you doing?" It clearly didn't think I was following the mission. To it, this looked more like sadistic amusement than task completion. I simply replied, "Don't worry." Then I typed another message. Host must raise male lead George's affection to a positive number within 2 weeks, or random punishment mode will activate again. Sophia lay on the floor, gasping for breath, unable to accept what had just happened. But she had no choice. The electric shock had left a deep psychological scar. Even now, she could still feel phantom currents crawling through every nerve. And she no longer trusted her own body to obey her will. Her mind was a blur, and for a long moment, she couldn't even remember who George was. It wasn't until much later that it came to her. Makoto's older brother, the real young master from the countryside. At that same moment, a ding sounded in my ear. Sophia's affection toward me had dropped even further. Chapter 4. I didn't plan to let Willow off either. She behaved more calmly than Sophia, neither resisting nor accepting. Instead, she had someone investigate my background. When I switched to her screen, she was already dressed and sitting properly at her desk again. Since she wasn't looking for trouble, I had to give her something to deal with. They must develop obedience to the system, and to me, and obedience is born from punishment and reward. I wrote, male lead George's affection -10, current affection -10, detected, male lead's affection toward host below 0, random punishment mode activated. Willow hadn't even processed the sudden drop in affection before the punishment notification arrived. She wasn't prepared at all when a wave of heat surged through her entire body. I tapped on the system's unrelievable desire item. I chose this punishment simply because I wanted to watch a vivid, living scene unfold. The Willow I'd seen and the Willow I'd heard of were both described as an untouchable ice goddess. But the first time I met her, I felt that her eyes didn't match the rest of her demeanor. She had the look of someone ascetic and aloof, yet her eyes were soft, brimming with affection like peach blossoms in bloom. That day, she wore a pair of silver-rimmed glasses without prescription, probably aware of her eyes' contrast. She hid them behind a mask. To make such an ascetic person feel an uncontrollable desire, was it tormenting her, or letting her indulge herself? I enlarged Willow's surveillance feed. In the image, as the wave of heat swept through her, she froze in her chair. She bit her lower lip tightly, clearly trying her best to suppress the sudden rush of passion. Her face was flushed, her breathing quickened. Since she was at home, she wasn't wearing her glasses. I noticed her peach blossom eyes glistening faintly, and her long lashes dampened. I couldn't tell if it was from tears or sweat. Willow parted her lips, letting out an involuntary sound of distress. After a while, she leaned forward over the desk, her breath trembling and uneven. When she realized she couldn't suppress the strange sensation by willpower alone, she removed the jacket that was making her feel unbearably hot. Her refined and elegant figure appeared before my eyes. Even then, Willow, always so composed and self-disciplined, endured the discomfort silently, refusing to make a single humiliating sound. Her body trembled slightly. Her face was flushed, caught between pain and confusion. I continued to watch the live feed. When Willow understood that she couldn't escape the strange torment overwhelming her, a faint cry of anguish escaped her lips. She gasped softly, "Stop, please stop." I almost wanted to make her beg, but I had to maintain the system's cold, mechanical persona. So instead, I issued the next command. The host must raise male lead George's affection to a positive value within 2 weeks, or random punishment mode will activate. Beads of sweat shimmered on Willow's pale skin. She finally gave in, accepting the command in humiliation. The torment ceased instantly, and Willow collapsed weakly onto the bed. For someone who had always lived a smooth and orderly life, such an experience was the most unbearable and unspeakable one yet. A form of punishment that left marks not only on her body, but deep in her mind. Even after it ended, the memory of it lingered, as if the echo of that helpless struggle still clung to her soul. Chapter 5. Willow probably went to investigate me. Maybe she even asked my family about my situation, because when I walked out of the hotel, I saw her standing at the entrance. When she noticed me, she called out, "George?" I noticed that when she said my name, her body trembled slightly, probably because she still remembered the torment from yesterday. I replied, "Aunt." That word made Willow's body tremble again. She must have come here thinking about conquering me, about starting some kind of romance. But the moment I spoke, I reminded her of our family relationship. It was probably the most awkward, difficult moment in her 28 years of life, but she quickly brushed away that emotion. With a charming smile, she said. Just call me Willow. Why call me Aunt? Do I really look that old? Then she explained why she was here. She said, I heard you ran away from home and didn't bring anything with you. I was worried something might happen to you, so I asked someone to find you. I went along with her story and asked, You're worried about me? We're not that close, are we? As I spoke, I opened the car door and got in. Then I said naturally, Give me a ride to school. We can talk on the way. The system watched my behavior, wanting to comment but staying silent. It had never seen a conquest strategy like this before. With just a few simple actions, the one who took the lead became me. No need to be a simp chasing after someone. No need to rack my brain trying to please anyone. Just stay still and wait for the woman to come to me. During this time, whatever I say or do, whatever I ask for, it's all perfectly reasonable and must be accepted. Before she could speak, I said, If you tell me Makoto sent you to find me, I won't believe it, because right before I left, we had a big falling out. If my dear father hadn't stepped in, we probably would have come to blows. So that excuse wouldn't work for Willow. She looked at me, calm and confident. And for the first time, she felt something troublesome stirring inside her. After all, she was beautiful, delicate features, stunning looks. In any social setting, a few well-placed smiles or words from her could make men completely lose their composure. But none of those tricks seemed to work on me, no matter what she tried. She had this constant feeling that she'd be exposed at any moment. Willow pressed her lips together and said slowly, It was my own decision to come find you. I understood, she was going for the direct approach, but I was even more direct. Smiling, I asked, You like me? Willow froze. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt, especially when facing a woman one generation older. She closed her eyes briefly, then admitted, Yes. I chuckled. Love at first sight? She replied, Yes. I continued. Then those past few months when you didn't come looking for me, was it because you thought, as an older woman, I couldn't possibly be interested in you? Or because you felt it was shameless to fall for someone a generation younger? Willow was speechless. Inside, she fumed. Why does he have to talk so harshly? Just as she was about to go silent, she suddenly heard that familiar mechanical voice. System, male lead George's favorability -20. Current favorability, -30. System, detected that the male lead is dissatisfied with your silence. Recommend host to respond to every sentence, ensuring none of his words are ignored. Willow took a deep breath, suppressing her irritation. She forced a nod and said weakly, Yes, I replied. Then maybe read fewer of those. The dominant CEO fell for my gynecological illness kinds of stories. The system said, Male lead George's favorability +0.01. Current favorability, -29.99. Willow was speechless. She couldn't even remember the last time she had felt something this suffocating. As if a bone were stuck in her throat. And today, she was experiencing it all at once. In my mind, I forced myself to think of every sad thing I could, just to hold back the rising laughter. Even though my own system had reported that Willow's favorability toward me had dropped, it didn't seem like a loss. As long as I maxed out her affection before the final deadline, everything would be fine. After all, the fake system I installed for her could trigger random punishments at any time. It was obvious which of us would suffer more. I continued. So, do you regret being sarcastic and passive-aggressive toward me back when it was all for Makoto? Willow replied calmly. Yes, I regret it. She had already learned to accept my nonsense without even blinking. I nodded and said, Good. Then just keep regretting. Willow didn't know how to respond again. She hesitated for several minutes. The system spoke once more. Male lead George's favorability -10. Current favorability, -39.99. Warning, second time the host failed to respond promptly. A third delay will trigger random punishment. Willow nearly burst into tears out of frustration. I decided to keep pushing. So, since you said you like me, that means you're the one chasing me, right? Willow nodded. Yes, I frowned. Then why do you look like you're doing me a favor? Shouldn't you be the one trying to start a conversation? Why so cold? Do I owe you something? Willow was speechless again. She had just opened her mouth when male lead George's favorability -10. Current favorability, -49.99. Detected unfriendly attitude toward male lead. Second instance, random punishment will commence immediately. Willow took a deep breath. She felt like this car ride was never going to end. She regretted ever setting out to find me, without first understanding what kind of person I really was. She regretted letting me know she liked me so carelessly, because now, I was clearly using that confession as leverage. Pressing her further and further, and the worst part, she couldn't even fight back. Forcing a smile, Willow said, When your vacation starts, how about we go on a trip together? You can take photos for me. That's a must-have skill for any boyfriend, isn't it? I sighed and rubbed my forehead. After a moment, I reached out, tilted her chin up toward me. For some reason, Willow's heart skipped a beat. The next second, I received a notification. System, the female lead's heart rate has accelerated because of you. You can act even more assertively. I replied. Are you sure it's not rage-induced tachycardia that you're mistaking for infatuation? While she blinked, half open, half closed, I took a photo of her with my rear camera. I said, forget about photo skills. You need to learn to make peace with yourself. You're getting older. This is what you look like. My camera doesn't lie. The disdain in my tone was unmistakable. Willow looked at the picture and started to doubt herself. Am I really an old woman? Before leaving, I tapped on her car window. Her cold, alluring face slowly came into view. I said, Willow, if you're serious about chasing me, show me something real. I don't like empty gestures. Fake system, male lead George's favorability +1. Current favorability, -48.99. Detected, male lead gave you a 5-star review and expressed hope you arrive on time next time. Chapter 6. After class, I went to the library. System, the female supporting role is looking for you. I opened the surveillance feed and saw that Sophia had just stepped out of the classroom where I'd had my previous lecture. Then I activated the fake system and typed, detected movement from the male lead. Would the host like to enable the location map? Sophia, panicking, practically meowed, turn it on. If she hesitated any longer, she'd probably be electrocuted again. Ever since yesterday's wild shock session, Sophia kept feeling like there was still residual electricity in her body. She'd even been zapped by static more often throughout the day. Right now, all she wanted was to get in touch with me as fast as possible. Fake system, location map price, 50,000 yuan. Sophia was speechless. If she hadn't experienced that electric shock herself, she would have seriously suspected this system was just some high-tech scammer. Taking a deep breath, she told herself, fine, consider it money spent to avoid disaster. Once she finished conquering me, she'd make George pay her back double. Soon, I heard the notification of coins being transferred. I pulled up the map interface and projected it before her, exposing my exact location. Moments later, someone sat down across from me. George. Then, a voice filled with dark resentment spoke up, a tone heavy with hostility. Fake system, male lead George's favorability -10. Current favorability, -60. Warning, if male lead's favorability drops to -100, mission failure will occur. Immediate termination will follow. Sophia's expression froze. She cleared her throat and forced a playful tone. Geo. Handsome. I was dumbfounded. What the hell was that sound supposed to be? Fake system. Male lead George's favorability -5. Current favorability, -65. Detected aversion from male lead. Possible mental contamination caused by host's voice. Sophia kept smiling on the surface. But in her heart, she silently made another note of vengeance. She'd get me back for this. Once she truly conquered me. Once I fell for her, she'd repay every ounce of humiliation tenfold. She said softly, you and Makoto had a fight, didn't you? I replied flatly. So what? Are you here to speak on his behalf? Fake system. Male lead George's favorability -10. Current favorability, -75. She was now dancing on the edge of danger. Sophia quickly waved her hands. No, I'm just here to mediate between you two. Fake system. Male lead George's favorability -5. Current favorability, -80. What? How was it still getting worse? Sophia scrambled to correct herself again. No, wait, that's not right. I mean, you're not the one at fault here. I gave her a reluctant nod. Sophia cautiously continued. Makoto, he. Fake system. Male lead George's favorability -10. Current favorability, -90. She didn't even finish her sentence. Sophia froze, cutting herself off just in time. Now there were only 10 steps between her and death. Even her breathing became careful, shallow. Then it hit her. She finally realized the pattern. Whenever she mentioned Makoto, my favorability dropped. I didn't want to hear anything about him right now. Not his name, not his excuses, nothing. Sophia had made her first fatal mistake, using Makoto as her excuse to start a conversation with me. I said, go on. The very first day I came here, weren't you still backing Makoto? For that fake, what did you call me again? A poor loser from the countryside, uncultured and ill-mannered. Damn. Hearing me bring up the past, Sophia's mind went completely blank. The fake system said, male lead George's affection -9. Current affection, -99. Warning. Male lead's affection too low. Random punishment mode will activate in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Nowhere to hide. That meant she would have to receive the punishment right in front of me. I tapped my fingertip on the table, and a surge of electricity instantly swept through Sophia's entire body. It made her almost cry out in pain, but reason forced her to press herself against the table, biting her lower lip hard, trying to suppress the moan that was about to escape her lips. This surge of electricity wasn't like the one in the bedroom, painful enough to make her mind go blank and scream nonstop. The pain was within what she could endure, yet it made her whole body tingle and itch, as if tens of thousands of ants were crawling and biting all over her skin. She couldn't stop herself from panting, from wanting to let out shameful sounds. In the quiet library, any noise would be infinitely amplified if she made even the slightest sound here. By the afternoon, rumors about her doing strange things in the library would spread all over the confession wall. What would she do for the remaining 2 years of university? Drop out. Sophia could only try to distract herself by cursing the system. She suppressed everything with all her might, grateful that my seat was a single desk, tucked away in a secluded corner, with bookshelves blocking the view around. I watched as Sophia's face flushed red, her whole body trembling. Even the strands of her hair seemed to quiver. Every now and then, a faint gasp escaped her lips, despite her efforts. I watched her with amused interest for a moment. Then, silently, I walked behind her. Suddenly, I placed my hand on her shoulder. Sophia couldn't hold back a small cry, then gasped sharply. From where I touched her, the current spread again, like when a numbed arm is suddenly tapped. Painful, yet strangely exhilarating. I said softly, "Sophia, are you okay?" Sophia's face was flushed, her eyes unfocused, her whole expression dazed, not like someone being shocked, but like someone drifting among the clouds, utterly satisfied. Her voice trembled. "Don't touch me," I asked. "You don't look well. Should we go to the infirmary?" Sophia whispered, "I just need a moment, just give me a moment." When her soft, rhythmic breathing finally faded away, I knew she had recovered. Sophia looked at me, unable even to summon disgust. Although I was the reason she had suffered, I still held her lifeline in my hands. The last bit of affection. If I made one wrong move and that final affection point dropped, she'd be gone for good. Sophia carefully adjusted her tone. She said softly, "George, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things about you before." She was still weak from the shock, resting her cheek on her hand, eyes shimmering with moisture, looking as pitiful as a kitten caught in the rain. I asked, "Do you like me too?" Sophia instinctively denied it in her heart, but then, thinking about her strange behavior, she realized that maybe only liking could explain it. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. I asked again, "Was it love at first sight?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded once more. After a brief pause, she suddenly seemed to realize something. "Too?" she asked in confusion, feigning surprise. I said, "That's right. Your aunt, Willow, suddenly came to me today saying she liked me too, and wanted to be with me. You two aren't planning to share a husband, are you?" What outrageous words! Sophia's face flushed bright red, whether from anger or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. She quickly changed the subject, asking pitifully, "What do I have to do for you to forgive me, to raise your affection toward me?" She had zero experience with romance, had never dated anyone. To raise my affection toward her by 99 points within a week. She really couldn't think of any other way but to ask directly. I replied, "Make Makoto apologize to me." I added, "Aren't you and Makoto childhood friends? Tell him to come and apologize." Sophia immediately knew that was impossible. Makoto might look normal on the surface, but deep down, he was an egocentric lunatic. Making him apologize to someone he didn't get along with, absolutely impossible. Sophia looked troubled and asked, "Isn't there any other way?" I said, "No." After she left, finding some excuse to get away, the system asked me, "Why did you want them to know about each other's existence?" Sophia wasn't stupid. From what I'd said earlier, she had probably guessed something strange about Willow. Most likely, she was going to confirm it with her aunt right now. The system thought it was dangerous for the two of them to know they both had a system. If they joined forces, things could easily spiral out of control. But I said, in matters of affection, alliances can turn into betrayals at any time. If Sophia and Willow believed that being bound to the same system and sharing the same mission meant they were on the same team, mutually supportive, they'd be dead wrong. In reality, the two of them were rivals. Chapter 7. The next day, I received a system notification telling me that the two of them were planning to team up against me. Sophia clearly couldn't meet the demand I had made. She started showing up in front of me all the time, giving up her free time just to accompany me to the library. Sometimes, she'd even save me a seat. That slightly improved my impression of her. Male lead George's favorability +1. Current favorability, -98. Saving a seat earned her 1 point of favorability. It felt like she was paying for the seat with favorability points. Still, a little is better than nothing, after all. Even a mosquito has meat. While I read, she sat across from me, bored, picking at the cracks in the desk. Sometimes she'd scroll through her phone watching Little Red Book, the local social app. but whenever she distracted me from studying, I'd deduct points from her favorability. Male lead George's favorability -1, current favorability -99. So in the end, Sophia's favorability remained at -99. She was clearly suffering, but she didn't like reading either. Her gaze drifted from the green scenery outside the window to the person sitting by it. A sudden system chime announced Sophia's favorability had increased, interrupting my train of thought. Without even looking up, I frowned and said, "Don't stare at me." Sophia instinctively denied it. I wasn't staring. Then she deliberately turned her head away, but before long, she was staring again. I could hear the subtle fluctuations of her favorability rising and falling in my ears. I spoke again, "Don't stare at me." And also, I lifted my head, met her eyes, and said, "Control the sound of your heartbeat." Our eyes locked. Sophia's face turned scarlet in an instant. She had no idea how long she'd been looking at me, nor how loud her heartbeat had become, to the point of being audible to others. She lowered her head onto the desk, desperately trying to suppress it, but the more she tried, the louder and clearer it sounded in her own ears. Sophia mumbled, "You looked at me too, otherwise how would you have noticed?" Female supporting character Sophia's favorability +10, current favorability 30. I had no idea what she was thinking. The whole afternoon, her favorability kept fluctuating, jumping up significantly, dropping a little, then rising again. Probably her two brain hemispheres were having a fistfight. As we left the library, Sophia kept pestering me, asking if I could change my demand. She even offered to apologize on Makoto's behalf. I was getting impatient. The fake system spoke. Male lead George's favorability -0.5, current favorability -99.5. Sophia finally quieted down. Any lower by 0.5, and she'd be done for. Chapter 8. Ever since our last conversation, Willow would occasionally come to find me. After I turned down her suggestion to go on a travel check-in trip, I took the initiative to propose visiting the Lu Corporation when I had free time. It was my first time stepping into a major company. Even after being taken back by the Wong family, they never gave me any chance to see the world, not even a simple welcome banquet. They were afraid I'd embarrass them in public. So the most luxurious thing I received after returning to the Wong household was a bedroom of my own, with a private bathroom attached. I did think I deserved more, but since I couldn't get it for now, I didn't mind waiting. Willow asked me, "So, what are your thoughts after walking around just now?" While she worked, her secretary showed me around each floor of the company. Everyone there was dressed in suits, mature and composed, and I, in my hoodie and sweatpants, stood out like a sore thumb. I lingered on every floor for a long time, moving like a leader on inspection, observing every single person's posture. Their work was beyond my comprehension, in fields I knew nothing about, yet I watched anyway, pretending to understand. I said, "Just a bunch of corporate drones." Willow was speechless. Every time she talked to me, she said it felt like punching cotton, no resistance at all, but she couldn't afford to show any irritation. My favorability toward her was already in the negatives, and she didn't dare make it worse. Willow adjusted her glasses with a delicate motion, and my gaze unconsciously followed, landing on her eyes and brows. She said, "With your permission, I looked into your past work history. It's quite impressive. At only 20, you already have 6 years of experience, meaning you started working as a minor. That was only what could be found in records. In truth, I had started working for others even earlier. My family was poor, with debts and medical bills to pay, so I had to juggle school and part-time jobs. Fortunately, small towns weren't strict about minors working back then, otherwise, I might have ended up begging." I looked calmly at Willow. My gaze lingered on her refined features and her impressive figure. Willow continued, "You have extensive experience, but it's all over the place." Then she asked me about my plans for the future. Through these days of contact, she had come up with her own strategy to conquer me. She saw me as an ambitious person with vision, so she decided to help me enter the professional world and build a career of my own. However, when Willow looked at me, she noticed my gaze was fixed on her body. I even swallowed slightly, my expression casual and lazy. In that instant, Willow felt as if she were stripped bare. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was being appraised, as if she were a product on display. She couldn't tell what she was feeling, whether it was nervous anticipation, or rejection and disgust. Logically, the latter emotions should have been stronger, more fitting, but they weren't. She bit her lip, feeling her jacket was too tight, too constraining, her blouse's collar too high, too suffocating. That hot, breathless sensation felt like the system's punishment arriving ahead of schedule. I heard the familiar chime of increasing favorability. Scratching my head, I met her eyes and said, "I'm interested in everything, and I'm good at everything. If I haven't seen it, I'm curious. If I've learned it, I excel at it." Willow stared at me for a moment, not knowing how to respond. Then I added, "So, why don't you teach me how to run a company?" I'll use it to fight my brother for the family inheritance. After that, Willow began taking me to Lu Corporation frequently. Whether she was working or attending meetings, she always included me. She genuinely tried to guide me in the right direction. What the Wang family refused to let me experience, Willow made up for completely. Her extra years of life experience weren't for nothing, even if she got in through connections. She knew how to help me stand firm. I soaked up knowledge like a sponge, and every time I truly learned something useful, I'd add a few favorability points to her score. As Willow spent more time with me, she gradually started to develop real feelings. At first, she only wanted to conquer me through her calculated strategy, but now, she was genuinely trying to expand my social network, introducing me, as the Wang family heir, to people who hadn't even known I existed. After yet another business meeting ended, I stood up, ready to leave. She, without thinking, reached out and tightened the slightly loose tie around my neck. It was such a natural gesture that I didn't comment on it, and that, in turn, left her momentarily stunned. Habits are terrifying things. Even though we hadn't spent much time together, it was surprisingly easy to nurture habits around certain people. I'd always been the type who didn't care about small details, whether my tie matched my suit, how many buttons I fastened, or how I tucked in my shirt. I wore things however I felt like it. Willow, on the other hand, was clearly obsessive about order. So when she saw me dressing sloppily again and again, she couldn't help but correct me. The first and second times, I listened and fixed my tie properly. By the third time, her words went in one ear and out the other. By the fifth and sixth, she couldn't hold back anymore. She started fixing it for me herself. After enough repetitions, it became second nature for her. Whenever she saw my messy clothes, her hand automatically reached out to adjust them. She froze for a moment, her fingers brushing the button on my chest, then quickly let go when she noticed my indifferent expression. I stretched lazily, feeling a bit hot, and loosened the tie she had just straightened. She looked as if she wanted to say something, but held back, and instead, she gently smoothed out the back of my jacket. I said, "You've helped me so much. Don't you want something in return?" Willow blinked, caught off guard. She wanted to say that just receiving favorability points would be enough. After all, that was the whole reason she had been so kind to me in the first place. But the thought of asking for that suddenly felt wrong. It made her feel as though my appreciation, my liking, wasn't real. She didn't know how to respond. The 7-day deadline was almost up, and she still owed 10 points of favorability. So Willow decided she'd simply stay home that day, to avoid being punished or humiliated in public. Then, suddenly, she saw a jewelry box appear before her eyes. Startled, she looked up at me in surprise. I placed it into her hand and said, "This is for you, a gift. I bought it with my own savings. It's cheap, but I hope you don't mind. The Wang family doesn't give me money. I'm just a broke student." Actually, it wasn't my money. It was the money Sophia had earned. I'd spent 9 yuan online. Inside was a pair of stylish earrings, but Willow didn't have pierced ears. I said, "You should get your ears pierced. I think you'd look beautiful with earrings." If I didn't have the means to give a thoughtful gift, I could at least make it sound special, use compliments to cover the lack of effort. Willow smiled softly. She put the jewelry box into her bag and said, "All right." As she walked alongside me, matching my pace, she said gently, "You must be tired today. How about no takeout tonight? I'll cook for you instead." The next second, the system chimed. Female lead Willow's favorability plus 30. Current favorability, 68. Male lead George's favorability plus 60. Current favorability, 50. The two notifications sounded one after the other. Willow froze, eyes widening slightly. It was the most generous increase I had ever given her. The numbers were so high it almost overwhelmed her. She began to wonder, what did 50 favorability from me actually mean? Was it just fondness? Or was it something closer to affection? I walked a few steps ahead of her, then stopped and turned around when I noticed she hadn't moved. I said, "Come on, what are you standing there for?" Chapter 9. Before the deadline, Sophia still went to see Makoto. Makoto messaged me, "What did you do to Sophia? Did you drug her? Where do you live? Send me your address. I'm coming to find you." Although Sophia couldn't make him apologize to me, she still did what I told her to do. So I gave her a slight increase in affection as a token gesture. The fake system said, "Male lead George's affection plus 10. Current affection, minus 89. 5. I opened Sophia's surveillance feed. The moment the image appeared, I heard her sobbing. Even with the increased affection, it was useless. This small amount wasn't enough to escape the punishment. She was destined to receive it. I watched her cry, then slowly accept reality. When the system notification sounded, her whole body trembled for a moment. Seeing her terrified like that, a wicked idea suddenly crossed my mind. My control shifted from electrical shocks to an inescapable kind of desire. Sophia didn't feel the expected electric punishment. Instead, she began to feel the surrounding temperature rising. She felt so hot. This wasn't right. She didn't just feel hot, there was also a wave of desire rising within her. In no time, Sophia's whole body began to flush red. She lay on her back, breathing heavily, letting out sounds that couldn't be described. Unlike Willow, Sophia didn't try to suppress the sudden surge of lust. She started to relieve herself directly. But clearly, it didn't work. I then turned on the microphone and said, "Sophia." Sophia almost thought she was hallucinating. She looked up in confusion but didn't see me anywhere in the room. Her mind and body were both being driven by desire. It took her a moment to realize it was the system's voice, but it carried my tone. I imitated the system's cold, mechanical voice and began reciting the contract beast protocol. George is the sky. George is the earth. You must completely obey George. Everything must be done with George's interests as the highest priority. Everything George does is right. Everything he does is for your own good. The system fell silent. Sophia was nearly driven insane by the unrelenting desire that refused to subside, while my rambling voice still echoed in her ears. My voice, cold as ice. In her daze, Sophia could almost see me staring at her with a blank expression, watching her thinly dressed, her skin glistening with fragrant sweat, watching her pant and let out shameful sounds, watching her curl up in pain, tears welling in her eyes. She choked out, "Please." Sophia didn't even know whom she was pleading to, the system, or me. Her mind was filled with nothing but George, George, George. It was as if all those feelings were born because of me. Sophia lay on her clothes, faintly sensing my lingering warmth upon them. Perhaps it was just an illusion born from being with me for too long. I asked, "Sophia, who are you begging?" Sophia clutched the piece of clothing tightly, her expression dazed. Beads of hot sweat soaked her hair, sticking it to her flushed cheeks. With tears in her eyes, she choked out, "George, begging George, please, let me go." The system spoke. Female side character Sophia's affection plus 30. Current affection, 66. What answered her was silence. After a long pause, I said, "As you wish." The punishment stopped, but the heat in her body lingered. Sophia gasped for air, but she still refused to let go of the clothes. The punishment had ended, but the desire remained. Chapter 10. When Sophia came to see me again, there was a flicker of avoidance in her eyes. She didn't speak until I stopped writing. "Do you like my aunt?" she asked. It was obvious she'd already found out that Willow hadn't been punished. She should have been happy for her, but for some reason, she felt a bit off inside. A kind of imbalance she couldn't explain. Why was my affection for her so low, while Willow's favorability score was so high? They had both approached me at the same time. Sophia had once asked Willow how to conquer me. Willow had gone quiet for a long while, maybe thinking about how to put it. Or maybe she just didn't want to tell. In the end, Willow said it outright, getting me into the company, arranging a job for me, teaching me experience, and introducing me to connections. Those were her methods, but obviously, that wasn't something Sophia could do. Her parents didn't even plan for her to inherit the family business. Willow finally added lightly, "Then you can try my method too. After all, companionship is the cheapest strategy, because companionship is mutual, it's not really giving. And definitely not a sacrifice. This isn't about gender. It's about whether you actually help the other person's career." Her words sounded so smooth and clever, making it seem like she was the wise one, and Sophia the fool among the three of us. And why should Willow's method sound noble, while hers got dismissed as cheap? What a show-off. Their conversation ended with Sophia hanging up in anger, but even so, she couldn't deny the dull frustration in her chest. She and I really hadn't interacted much before. Most of those 2 weeks had been taken up by Willow. Sophia thought that was why she hadn't escaped punishment. If she'd taken back her time with me, her favorability score wouldn't have been this low. Thinking that, the way she looked at me burned even hotter. I said, "Not bad. I kind of like her." Sophia panicked. She blurted, "How can you say that? My aunt's 6 years older than us. They say every 3 years is a generation gap. She's got 2. I looked at her with a smile. "Aren't we supposed to help each other?" I said. "You sure you want to talk about your aunt like that? Aren't you afraid she'll smack you for it?" Sophia clearly remembered the cooperation between them, and her face turned awkward. Still, she mumbled stubbornly, "I'm just telling the truth." After a pause, she said, "George, want to go skiing this weekend? You've been so busy lately, you should relax once in a while, right?" I didn't really have plans for the weekend, but even when I didn't, I usually stayed at Lou Corporation. My eyes turned slightly, and I smiled. "Sure." Chapter 11. That weekend, right on time, I sent Willow a message. I told her I was going skiing with Sophia. After the message went out, I watched through the security feed as she stood by the empty office doorway for a few seconds before finally stepping inside. Willow replied, "Got it. Have fun. You too." Then she added, Sophia's always been playful. Sometimes she gets too carried away and forgets to be careful. Make sure you stay safe. I texted back. Willow, you sound just like my mom. Willow fell silent. On the monitor, I could see her take a deep breath. I sent another. No wonder Sophia says you have a generation gap with us. Willow bit her lower lip hard. I added. She says you're 6 years older than us, 2 generation gaps apart, that we're not suitable. Willow's breathing quickened. She looked furious. She replied, fine, I'll have a talk with her. Then another message came. Besides, in relationships, choosing someone who can help your career is better than picking an immature girl who constantly needs coaxing. And finally, of course, the choice is yours. Just as I read that, Sophia called out to me from nearby. George, what are you standing there for? Spacing out like a silly reindeer. The weather was freezing. She was wearing a long black down jacket, hopping on a mound of snow, waving her arms excitedly. Willow was right. Sophia really did know how to have fun. Being with her meant trying all kinds of new, carefree activities I'd never experienced before. The biting wind lashed against my face, but it cleared my head completely. For a while, all the worries faded away. When we were both exhausted, we lay flat on the snow. Fake system, male leads affection plus 30. Current affection, 10. Sophia's eyes instantly sparkled. She blinked at me and said, hey cutie, aren't you happy hanging out with me? Her voice went soft and high, like a smug cat showing off. I looked at her with disgust. That fake sweet tone is disgusting. Sophia froze, then immediately blew up. What did you just say? She refused to admit that she'd purposely changed her tone and tried to act cute. Online, everyone said it worked, but from my mouth, it came out as gross. Of course she was embarrassed and angry. Fake system, detected verbal offense toward the male lead, initiating random punishment mode. The thing about this punishment system was, it didn't follow logic, only mood. Sophia's face went pale. Before she could react, that familiar wave of heat spread through her body. She let out a soft gasp, her knees giving out, and she collapsed right into my arms. Feigning concern, I asked, Sophia, what's wrong? Her face was flushed, her eyes hazy. She murmured, I feel weird. I asked, weird how? Where do you feel it? Sophia whispered, hot, so hot. I smirked, you mean aroused? Sophia was speechless. Well, yes, but did he really have to say it out loud like that? I coughed lightly. Sorry, that's not what I meant. The next second, Sophia's consciousness was once again overtaken by desire. She rubbed against me, eyes closed, pressing her snow-white head against my chest, nuzzling lightly. The cold touch made me shiver, but at the same time, I could feel the burning heat radiating from her body. I said, who gave you the drug? Sitting up, I cupped her face in my hands. She leaned into my palm, rubbing against it, feeling the warmth she knew so well, hearing the voice she longed for. Something stirred deep within her heart. The feeling she couldn't relieve was painful and torturous, and that pain had been caused by me. She should have hated me for it, but at this moment, it was as if she had found the antidote, clinging to me with deep attachment. When Sophia tried to follow as I rose, I held her down, keeping some distance between us. She hesitated for a moment, then stubbornly leaned closer, forcing me to grip her even tighter. That direct contact only intensified her sensations. She could no longer tell if it was pain or longing that she felt more strongly. Her eyes shimmered with tears as she looked at me. I frowned and said, you really have no self-respect, do you? No shame, no restraint, no matter where you are. Sophia's eyes turned red. Softly, she whispered, say whatever you want, just don't leave me. I stood up first and lifted her. She rose weakly with me, her whole body limp, clinging to me as if her bones had melted away. Sophia murmured, just hold me for a moment. I feel awful, please, have pity on me. As she spoke, her breath fell warm against my neck. I could hear her rapid breathing. Before I could react, she rose on her toes and kissed me. A second later, Sophia's face flushed bright red as she jumped back. She knew that the physical contact was driven by the punishment-induced desire, but the kiss, devoid of lust, was something she did instinctively. Through the layers of clothing, Sophia could hear a heartbeat louder than any sound in a library. The system spoke. Female side character Sophia's affection plus 20. Current affection, 86. Male lead George's affection plus 50. Current affection, 30. Sophia didn't know whether to be happy about my affection rising or to feel confused. She couldn't tell if my increasing affection was because of today's time together, or because of her kiss. She couldn't figure it out. Chapter 12. The fake system said, male lead George's affection 1. Current affection, 40. Willow was in her office when she suddenly heard the notification sound of the affection value dropping sharply. She instinctively picked up her phone, wanting to ask me what had happened. She couldn't understand why the affection level had suddenly decreased. She hadn't done anything. Yes, she hadn't done anything, but that didn't mean others hadn't. Willow immediately thought of Sophia, and then she remembered what I had said to her earlier. I watched Willow on the surveillance feed, her brows tightly furrowed. She sent Sophia a message, asking to meet and talk. Chapter 13. The next day, they met again. I set out beer, fried chicken, and skewers in front of me, turned on the surveillance feed, and waited for their rendezvous. The system sighed in exasperation. You're literally using the female lead and the side character as your dinner entertainment now. When Sophia arrived, her mood was still bright. She couldn't quite figure out my feelings toward her. But the rising affection level, and the fact that she'd finally gone from neutral to positive, were solid proof. Her efforts were paying off. Ever since that day, Sophia had been secretly savoring the memory. She couldn't tell whether she was reliving her victory, or that kiss. Either way, the thought made her blush every time it came up. What she thought about by day, she dreamed about by night, and in those dreams, it was me, accompanied by a pleasure she couldn't escape. Willow didn't waste any time. She opened directly with, "What exactly did you say to George yesterday?" The question shattered Sophia's pink, dreamy bubble. She blinked. "Say, what do you mean?" "I mean," Willow said coldly, "about your little skiing trip. You told me before you'd use the tricks I taught you, yet somehow, during the time you spent with him, my favorability score kept dropping." Sophia's first reaction was delight. Her second reaction was confusion. "Wait, why?" Willow studied her expression. "Shouldn't I be asking you that?" Then Sophia realized Willow was suspecting her. She pouted. "Auntie, you really don't have to doubt me. Between you and him, do you think I don't know who matters more? Why would I sabotage your conquest? If your strategy fails and you die in the game, what good does that do me?" Willow could tell she wasn't lying. Still, she frowned, completely unable to figure out the reason for the drop in affection. Before, whenever my affection toward her declined, she could always pinpoint the cause and correct it, to avoid making the same mistake again. But this time, it was absurdly inexplicable. Sophia couldn't understand it either. During her time with me, what had I possibly thought about that would lower Willow's favorability? Even the system got curious and asked me, "Why?" I patted my chest confidently and said, "Because I'm a loyal man. I can only like one person at a time. When I like someone new, my affection for anyone else automatically drops, so the two of them could never, ever reach a win-win situation." Chapter 14. Their first conversation hadn't uncovered the cause of the strange affection fluctuations, but later, during Willow's next interactions with me, she discovered the truth. Fake system, male lead George's affection +1, +2, +5, +10. Current affection, 69. Willow was still basking in the joy of her rising favorability score, when her phone suddenly rang. It was Sophia. She screamed through the receiver. "Willow, what did you do? You did this on purpose, didn't you? You're jealous I got close to George. You bitter old woman. Did you talk trash about me to him?" Willow frowned, but her tone remained calm. "What happened?" Sophia shrieked. "How can you ask that with a straight face? George's favorability toward me just dropped to 10. You definitely badmouthed me behind my back." At that, Willow immediately understood. She let out a helpless sigh. "Our plan may need some adjustments," she said quietly. "George can't fall for both of us at the same time." I watched from the monitors as they began to rework their plan, but unlike the first time, they weren't united against a common target anymore. This time, they had a rift. Sophia scowled. "Why should you get to conquer him first?" Willow's proposal was to continue the conquest sequentially. One goes first. The other just needs to keep her favorability from dropping below -100. Once the first one succeeds and ends things, the second can step in to continue, but neither was willing to go second. Each believed she deserved to go first. Willow's tone turned icy. "Does George like you more than me? Wouldn't it be faster if I go first?" Sophia retorted. "Are you saying his affection for you is constant? He loses points with you every time he gains some for me." Willow gave a cold snort. "Right now, he clearly likes me. Do I need to remind you that a score of 10 isn't even friendship level?" Sophia rolled her eyes. "So what? That's now. I can change his opinion of me in a single day, turn his disgust into admiration. And you? How long did it take you to erase his dislike? You threw him job offers, built connections, gifted resources, and still needed 2 whole weeks just to make him like you. Those 2 weeks were the time I gave you. If I'd taken even half of that time for myself, who do you think he'd like more?" Willow's grip on her phone tightened. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Sophia's words had clearly struck home. "Still," Willow said, "that doesn't change the fact that George loves me more right now." Sophia hit back without hesitation. "And that doesn't change the fact that he fell for me, while he was already fond of you." She sneered. "Then why don't you ask him? Ask George directly if he's ever had feelings for me." Willow's face darkened. though her voice remained calm. Sophia, there's no need to lash out at me. This plan isn't driven by my selfishness. I just want to finish this whole thing quickly. You know how busy I am. I can't wait around for you to complete your romance route, and then pass the baton to me. That would take far too long. Sophia's anger gradually softened. After all, she was still young. No match for someone like Willow. A seasoned socialite who could charm anyone she met. Had they been face to face, Willow would have easily seen that Sophia's agreement didn't come from the heart, but she couldn't see her. So in the end, Sophia reluctantly nodded, agreeing to maintain a lukewarm friend relationship with me, and hand all her time over to Willow. Chapter 15. How could I possibly let them maintain a healthy cooperative relationship? That would only put me in danger. So, during my interactions with Willow, I would raise her affection just enough, then lower Sophia's. And whenever Sophia met with me, she always looked like she had something to say but couldn't. Her words carried traces of grievance. Then, during my time with her, I'd increase her affection slightly, and drop Willow's in return. Almost without fail, not long after, Willow's call would come through. "Where are you?" she'd ask. "Playing pool," I said honestly. With Sophia, my gaze drifted to Sophia. The room was warm from the heating, and she was wearing only a thin low-cut dress. When she bent forward, a hint of pale skin showed, and the blue pendant around her neck swayed lightly in the air, like a collar inviting me to reach out and play with it. I took a sip of beer. Fake system, male lead George's affection -5, current affection, 65. Hearing that sound, Willow instantly knew. Every time her affection dropped, it meant I had just raised Sophia's. It was like patching one wall by tearing down another. Furious, Willow thought Sophia shameless and faithless, breaking their agreement, still trying every trick to seduce me whenever we met. Then Willow said over the phone, "Weren't you planning to attend that auction tonight? I'd like to go too." "Let's go together," I replied. "Sure, see you in a bit." Sophia's body tensed. She stood up and looked at me. "Who was that? Willow?" "Yes," I said, setting down my cue stick and reaching for my suit jacket. But Sophia grabbed it first. Her eyes lowered, her voice soft and plaintive. "Can't you not go? Every time we're together, she calls to interrupt, and now she's even taking you away." But she couldn't say more. After all, Willow hadn't technically broken any rules. Then Sophia muttered, "Maybe my aunt's just jealous because she likes you so much. She can't stand seeing you with anyone else. She's so petty, or maybe she just doesn't believe that men and women can be friends." The irony of her words almost made me laugh. I pinched her cheek, and while she was still startled, I took my jacket back. "We're just going to the auction," I said lightly. "I've wanted to check it out for a while." Then, brushing my thumb against her lips, I smiled. "We'll hang out next time." Sophia stared at me blankly, and as if the system itself echoed her heartbeat. Fake system, female side character Sophia's affection +10, current affection, 96. I stepped out of the building and saw Willow getting out of the car. The red earrings dangling from her ears caught the light immediately. She was wearing matching jewelry, a necklace and rings, all in bright, vivid colors. The more accessories I gifted her, the more she wore. They clashed a little with her usual elegance, yet somehow made her even more striking, an added touch of seductive brilliance. Willow reached up to straighten my slightly rumpled collar, then pulled a scarf from her bag and wrapped it around my neck. Taking my arm, she smiled. "So," she asked, "did you have fun today?" But her eyes flicked upward, to the second-floor window, where a pale face was pressed against the glass, watching us with a chilling, ghost-like stare. Fake system, female lead Willow's affection +10, current affection, 85. At first, Sophia managed to hold herself back, even when Willow intruded into our time together. But when my affection for her finally dropped to 0 because of Willow, she couldn't sit still anymore. She couldn't accept that I now treated her like a stranger. All she wanted was to earn a little favor back, just enough to restore our good friend status. She wasn't greedy, nor did she plan to ruin Willow's progress. On each of our dates, Sophia came up with new outfits every time, trying to draw my eyes to her. We surfed, we dived, we rode motorcycles along the coast. I've always believed that people need a balance of work and rest. After working hard at Willow's company, I found it only fair to reward myself with Sophia, to relax, to unwind a little. When we were exhausted, we went back to the seaside villa, by the pool. I lounged lazily on a recliner. When I got tired of watching the sky, I turned my eyes to the beauty in the pool. My gaze traced her slender waist, her long, toned legs. She surfaced from the water, drops sliding down her pale skin like scattered pearls. From the edge of the pool, she called, "George, aren't you going to swim a bit?" "Too lazy," I murmured, closing my eyes for a rest. But the next second, for reasons I couldn't fathom, Sophia suddenly straddled my lap. I jerked upright, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" She only placed her hands on my shoulders and kissed me. After that, things quickly spun out of control. At first, all Sophia wanted was to gain a few favor points, to escape the stranger status. She wasn't greedy. And she didn't mean to destroy Willow's plan. She just wanted to relive that feeling, that moment she couldn't forget. But the moment our lips met, all restraint, all reason vanished. Could she really give all our time together back to Willow after this? Impossible. System, female side character Sophia's affection +4. Current affection, 100%. Asterisk, congratulations. Host, you've successfully conquered the female side character. Just as things were about to ignite completely, I suddenly asked, "Where's Willow?" Sophia muttered, "I don't care about her." When she tried to continue, I stopped her, pushing her gently away. "This isn't right," I said. Sophia whimpered in frustration. "Then I'll be the mistress." "Okay. I'll be the secret lover, just don't tell her." That might be a problem. I increased Sophia's affection again. But Willow's dropped in turn. My phone sat by the pool. I hadn't answered her call. She'd probably already guessed, and was on her way here. Sophia bit her lip. "Touch me, just a little, please?" I said flatly. "You sound like you've got skin hunger." Sophia didn't even blink. She immediately accepted the label. "Yeah," she said cheerfully. "Remember when we went skiing? That was one of my episodes. I can't stand being away from people for too long." She really knew how to run with a joke, but the next moment, just as she leaned forward again, the doorbell rang, sharp, urgent. Sophia clearly didn't want to answer it. I hooked a finger under the collar around her neck. She gasped softly from the pull. I flicked the little bell hanging from it. "You really do look adorable like this," I said with a grin. "Come on, let's open the door." Pretty sure the one keeping tabs on us just showed up. Sophia had no choice but to bite back her frustration and put her clothes back on. She followed me downstairs, and sure enough, Willow was standing at the door. Her face was dark as storm clouds as her eyes swept over Sophia and me. My half-buttoned shirt, Sophia's damp hair, her disheveled clothes. Without a word, Willow shoved Sophia's hand off my sleeve and snapped, "Get in the car." I frowned. "Hey, don't be so harsh on her." Willow shot me a sharp glare. "Oh, feeling protective now, are you?" she said coldly. I got into the car and immediately turned on the surveillance feed. On the screen, Willow was the first to speak. "George has real talent in the business world. What he needs most right now is to learn, fast, and establish himself while he still can. He needs his own standing in the circle, not to waste his time fooling around with you." Sophia's retort came quick, sharp, and loud. "And who exactly are you to lecture me? My aunt, or George's mom?" At the word mom, Willow's brow twitched. I couldn't help but laugh. "Isn't this a bit too spicy for what's supposed to be a wholesome story?" Sophia pressed on, eyes glinting with defiance. "Why don't you just admit it? You're jealous. Jealous that George has fun with me. You're older. Willow, aside from helping him with his career, what else do you really have to offer?" Willow's voice turned cool, controlled. "You were the one who broke the rules first. Can't stand being called out for it." Sophia scoffed. "Don't use your noble excuses to cover your jealousy, when I was just being friends with George, who kept showing up and interrupting again and again." "Willow, dare you swear? Swear in front of George that once you max out his affection score, you'll break up with him." Willow's gaze dropped. She said nothing. Sophia let out a mocking laugh. "See, you can't even promise that. You've already decided to trap me, haven't you? You figured as long as my affection never drops below -100, I won't die. So you plan to keep me chained as his lifelong friend. Alive but never able to win." She sneered, voice trembling with anger. "You really think I can't see through that act of yours? I'm younger, more fun. George obviously enjoys being with me. You just drain him. That's why he comes to me, because I make him relax." Willow's hands clenched tightly at her sides, knuckles white. But she didn't say a word, and somehow, that silence made me feel a pang of sympathy. If there was even a single thing Sophia said that Willow didn't agree with, she would have fought back ruthlessly. Her silence wasn't surrender, it was insecurity. She really did feel that next to Sophia's youth and charm, she didn't fit me as well. When she was with me, it looked like a partnership of mutual benefit. With Sophia, though, it was something closer to genuine feeling. There's a saying online, "A woman who struggles through hardships with a man suffers for life, but a woman who spends her money on him also suffers for life." I don't know which kind of suffering is worse, but looking at the triumphant glow on Sophia's face, and the quiet, tight-lipped Willow beside her, between the two unlucky women, it was clear where my bias lay. The fake system said to Willow, "Male lead George's favorability +30, current favorability, 70. Then it said to Sophia, "Male lead George's favorability -30, current favorability, 30. Sophia's words froze instantly. she exclaimed in shock. Wait, what's going on here? The favorability she worked so hard to increase through kissing him, the favorability she earned by selling her charm and body, was taken away by another so easily. Sophia turned her gaze toward Willow. Fuming, she said. Oh, I see now. No wonder you didn't say a word when I was talking so much. You knew George was watching, didn't you? You pretended to be pitiful on purpose. I'm going to find him. As she spoke, she was about to step out. Willow suddenly dropped her meek and aggrieved expression. She slapped Sophia hard across the face, as if the favorability points I had given her were now her backing. Sophia wasn't going to take it lying down and slapped back. The two of them grabbed each other's hair and started fighting, completely disregarding their image. Sophia shouted, I'll tell my dad. My aunt is shameless, stealing my love and becoming the homewrecker in my romance. Willow sneered. Ha, always crying for your mom and dad whenever something happens. You know what? George is your age, and at his age, he's already capable of handling things on his own. I don't think he'll like a giant baby like you who runs to her parents every time love gets tough. Sophia screamed. He does like me. He will like me. He kissed me. He kissed me. Have you ever gotten that treatment? You're just an old woman past her prime. Willow paused for a moment, then slapped her again. She snorted coldly. He's still young, it's normal for him to be impulsive. I don't care, and neither will he. It was just a kiss. Do you think your lips are worth something? Being kissed by you, do you think that's important? It's not. I recorded the entire 360-degree scene of their argument and catfight from beginning to end. I'd keep it safe to watch later when I'm in a bad mood. It'll make me laugh for a whole year. Sophia, knocked to the ground, still refused to give up and yelled. Just you wait. I'll cling to George for life. I'll seduce him forever. There'll be a time when he can't resist me. I'll be the homewrecker. I'll watch over you two forever. You'll never get rid of me. If you've got the guts, kill me. Even if I die, I'll die between the two of you. Willow gave a light snort and said, Whatever. I don't care as long as he comes home. That's enough for me, the system said. Female lead Willow's favorability plus 15. Total favorability 100%. Congratulations. Host. All favorability points collected. You may now choose any golden cheat to keep. I said. System, can I only choose one? The system replied. You get 3. I said. Okay. Wrap up the fake system and the 2 punishment packages. The system announced. Congratulations, host. You have obtained 3 golden cheats. Have fun, host.